Okay, so now we've actually brought in a new vacuum. It looks the same, but this vacuum has some problems with it, and we're going to see if we can't figure it out. Geoff has brought this to me, so what problems are you having with the vacuum?
Well, I was trying to vacuum the floor over there at Knockhouse and lost some of its suction or something like that. It's just not working very well, and I don't know what's wrong with it.
Okay. Well, you know, the most common problem you're going to have with the vacuum is that you're going to get a clog in it. That can come in many different forms. The very first thing you're going to want to check is definitely the bag, as we were showing before.
Oh, okay.
You press this tab down, pull the panel off. Oh, immediately we've got a problem.
Oh, okay.
The bag is not securely adhered to the tube here in the back of the vacuum. And
why is that a problem?
Well, that's a problem because the dirt is not actually going to go into the bag. The dirt is just going to go into the main chamber, and you can see down here that we've got all kinds of dirt down here, which we really shouldn't happen. It really should all collect in the bag.
So that plugs it up.
Yep, exactly. So, okay. First thing we're going to do here, we're going to give you a new vet bag. This bag's already pretty dirty. It's got some dirt in it. But before we put this new bag on, we're going to clean out this main compartment.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So, fortunately, we have this filter down in the bottom of your vacuum compartment. And what that does is it protects the motor in instances like this where the bag has fallen off. Or maybe if somebody, you know, tries to run the vacuum without the bag in it at all. That's really bad for the vacuum, because if you get dirt into the motor, that's really the one way that you're going to kill this this vacuum.
Or in a really terrible case, start a vacuum fire.
True. So we are going to take this filter out, and you can actually pull it right out. You want to be careful not to let too much dirt fall into the motor.
Oh man, that is filthy.
Yeah, very, very dirty.
And so nothing can get through that.
We've got all this dirt on here, and really the only way we're going to get this really clean is that we can actually take this filter and run it underwater, and that'll allow us to get all of this out of here. And then before we put it back in the vacuum, we'll dry it back out with paper towel.
I can do that while you guys are doing the rest.
So you mean just run it under a common household sink?
Yep, definitely. Just run it right under the water, get all that dirt out, and then you just want to dry it out before you put it back in. Okay, so now we do still have some debris in the vacuum. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to flip it upside down, try to get as much of this debris out as I can, just to get it cleaned up. You can see quite a bit coming out of there. We don't want to pull all that dirt into the motor, so I want to try to get as much of this out as we can before we put it back together. Normally you shouldn't have to do this kind of thing. This is just when you run into that problem where the bag has come loose because it wasn't fully secured on, or because somebody has forgotten to put a bag in altogether and vacuumed without a bag in the compartment.
Okay, so we got all that dirt out. That should fix it, right?
Well, that's one step along the way. Eric's cleaning out that filter for us, thankfully, and it's a little bit of work to get all this dirt out.
Sometimes you can dump it just and move it forward, yeah. Wow, all that dirt was just in the filter there, so that is why that couldn't let any of that air through there. That was why it was had no suction.
That's a definite problem.
Okay, I just washed this off with a little clean water, wiped all that stuff off. Here's a...
Yep.
I didn't dry it.
Yeah. That'll, still some hairs on here, but it's pretty good, and we just want to make sure and dry that out before we put it back in. So if we take a couple of paper towels,
I've got one right here.
Well, actually I'll take two here. The best way I find to dry this out is to sandwich it between a couple.
Got a couple of paper napkins.
So that'll work. We'll just take one here, and then we'll just try to squeeze out all that moisture.
It's kind of a spongy material, that filter.
Yep. And we want to make sure it's dry before we put it back in the vacuum and turn it on, because we don't want to pull water into the motor. That would be a bad thing to do.
It's true of any electrical appliance.
Correct, yeah.
And I'm sort of getting this excess dust off here that's been collecting.
There we go. So as you can see, this is way cleaner than it was before. You can actually even see through it slightly. It's just got this spongy material. We've dried it out. So now...
It's got a curved part there?
Yep. It's a curved part, and that fits right around the back here. That's actually where the tube goes, and that's why there's that indent. So that's how you know how you want to put it in. You just slide it under these prongs that stick out here. Just pull it all the way to the back. Try not to tear the filter at all. And then tuck it under all the edges. And then it actually tucks under this rubber lip here, this gray rubber lip. So there we go, we've got the filter back in place. We've got most of the debris out of here. We can put that brand new vacuum bag in. So we'll have it all cleaned up here. Now, as I was showing before, I want to make sure that you fully secure this on. So you're going to grab it around the cardboard. You're going to push it down on that tube and push it all the way to the back so that it's totally secured on there and is not going to fall off. It's secure in there. Fold this underneath. And then we can put the door back on. Okay, so let's pull out that bag that we replaced again. So we replaced this one just because it was dirty, and you know, it could use a new bag while we're working on it. However, usually the reason that you're going to replace the bag is simply because the bag is going to become full. It's going to get packed full of dirt, and you're going to need to replace it. That's just a routine part of using a vacuum. It's something you always want to be aware of. Your light will help you remember to replace the bag, but you don't want to completely count on that. You might have problems where it doesn't actually come on. It is just good to check and make sure that your bag is not full and replace it when you need to.
How do you know when it's full?
Well, when you pull it off, you look inside, this bag is just going to be completely full, packed full of dirt. And hopefully you're going to catch it before it's so packed that it's going to start backing up into the tube. So, and you know, you'll get that indicator light, and it's just going to stop working as well as it should. So it should be pretty easy to tell, but you can always just take the door off and check whenever you vacuum.
And then when the bag gets full, what happens if the people keep using it?
Well, it's just going to stop working. It's not going to work so well. That's essentially what's going to happen.
How often should you check the bag?
Well, it just depends on. I mean, that really varies. It depends on you know, how much dirt you're vacuuming up, how many people are using it. It's really hard to tell. It's just something you should constantly be checking. Just a routine part of using a vacuum.
But every time you use it, you can check the bag.
Sure. Yep. Now, one more thing we're going to want to do before we put the door back on is we're actually going to want to replace this piece right here. It's what we call the post filter.
Oh, didn't we already change a filter in this vacuum?
Well, yeah, we changed the filter, or we cleaned the filter down here, but this is a filter that we actually. This filter is permanent. You can clean it just by running it under the water, but this permanent is one that we're going to want to replace just like we replaced the bag. Now, they recommend changing post filters every 3 times that you replace the bag. I know in the co-ops you're not necessarily going to know how often the bag has been replaced, so you can also just look and see if it's dirty. This one is very dirty. It probably should have been changed already, but we'll go ahead and do it right now. You can literally you can see that dust coming off of there. You just pull it right up. It's just attached with Velcro on the bottom. Some of the vacuums are actually attached with little clips, but either way you pretty much just pull the filter off, and then you put on a new one.
That is dirty. Now let's compare the...
Okay, so in here you can see a new post filter container.
Yep.
And here's a new one.
Thanks, Geoff. Yeah. So all we're going to do is we're just going to adhere this to the Velcro on the sides. And stick it into place. And really what this post filter does is, like I said, the motor is pulling air in here and it's pushing it out here. So the post filter is just an extra step to make sure that you're not kicking stuff back into the air, especially allergens.
So probably when that bag was off, it made that filter a whole lot dirtier because the dirt was just coming up from the floor trying to blow straight out.
Yep. And this vacuum is considered a HEPA vacuum. It does take allergens out of the air, which is a pretty nice feature. So we can actually now put this door right down into the groove, and then we snap it into place. You want to make sure that the door is fully closed and that the button pops back up. Pops back up pretty well in this one. You do always want to vacuum with the door on. If the door is off and you try to vacuum, it's not going to do anything because the motor is just going to be pulling air freely. It's not actually going to be pulling air through the vacuum. So the door being on is essential for it to work.